I think what really matters from sort of a long view here is the fact that he is militarizing and deploying the Guard for the purpose of policing Americans' protest activity, right? Our freedom of speech, our freedom of assembly.
Yes. You know, when they talk about their right to free speech and freedom to assembly, have you noticed they always leave out the peaceful part? It's right there in the First Amendment. You can read it to peaceably assemble. The Democrats always leave that out because they'd rather firebomb your baby carriage and, you know, harvest the organs and eat them like it's Night of the Living Dead. The Democrat Party. Well, a very good Tuesday to you, and welcome back once again. The Democrat Party continues to burn and loot and attack because the Democrat Party is a criminal organization, a violent criminal organization, naturally. But expect no less from them. They're the party of civil war. They're the party of the Confederate States. They're the party of every terrorist. Just name an American terrorist organization, from the KKK to the SDS and the Weather Underground, all Democrat organizations, all of them. And now, really, we should just declare the Democrat Party to be the chief terrorist organization in the United States of America, only because they are, and it would be fair. I know they don't want anything fair, but the Democrats are on the loose. They've got Pramila Jayapal. She's on the loose. And she's got some crazy stuff. What is it? It's your constitutional obligation to burn and loot and riot. For illegal alien gang members in the country illegally. According to a Democrat member of the Congress, the House of Representatives, she is a demented mental case. And I've got some audio from her just to establish that once again, as though it needs to be done again. Pramila Jayapal, it is the rioters, she's talking about the rioters, it's their constitutional obligation to riot and commit arson and to firebomb the Jews. And, of course, the police. Amazing. You'd think that the Democrats think that all the police are Jews or something, the way that they're attacking them and firebombing them. But they're building rail spurs and big shower rooms. We should be more and more concerned about the Democrat Party. The View, we just opened with a soundbite from The View, as a matter of fact. The View, those are ABC News employees on the ABC News payroll. They must be journalists at ABC News, like Terry Moran. How's Terry Moran doing? Is he still having... You know, I saw last night on the television news that maybe that Terry Moran thing was done late at night, like after midnight. Did you see that? I think, and his name's Terry Moran. That's a very Irish name. So immediately I started thinking, well, maybe he's drink, maybe a little drinky boy. Maybe he's getting Irish on himself there. But last time I looked, he's still suspended. Is he still suspended a sentence? Because Terry Moran, with his crazy screed on Stephen Miller and Donald Trump, got him suspended even by ABC News because of fear of lawsuits that they will lose again, millions and millions of dollars. Stephen Miller should sue him. Just to get the millions of dollars. Just tell him you want $150 million from ABC News for that, and have a lawyer call. Hello, ABC News. Here's my lawyer. Pretty good stuff. But The View, the hosts on The View, they warn of civil war. They're talking civil war. They're not the first ones either. In fact, I don't know if you've searched for this, Michael, but there's more and more talk in the media of civil war in the United States of America because the left is here, and they're communists, and communists bring civil war everywhere they go because they want to bring slavery and totalitarianism, and they need illegal aliens to do what, Michael? What do they need to do? Oh, yeah, wipe their asses. That's another Democrat member of Congress. The Democrat members of Congress are saying all kinds of wacky things. And Ilhan Omar, just see Ilhan Omar's daughter. Ilhan Omar, who escaped as a refugee from Mogadishu, from the Moog Mile. She escaped one of the world's, not just one of the world's, great beep hole locations, but one of history's, one of the great beep hole locations in the history of humankind. And the daughter of Ilhan Omar is a communist and a jihadi, and she's extremely un-American, anti-American. She is not on our side at all. But I told you about the graffiti in Los Angeles yesterday, spray painted on the walls of buildings, including "Death to America," and America spelled with KKKA because the Democrats created the KKK. I guess they have copyright privileges when it comes to using KKK, since they are the KKK. The only KKK man I ever met was a Democrat senator from West Virginia, Robert Byrd, and I interviewed him more than once when he was alive and in the Senate, and he had some of the scariest squinty eyes you're ever going to see. But I can't see him anymore, I guess, except in pictures. So the View hosts warned of civil war, and Ilhan Omar's daughter jumping in on the Democrat Party bandwagon and the graffiti, "Death to America." And here is Ilhan Omar's daughter on Instagram, "Death to the colonial empire." Death to the colonial empire. I think she was raised by a savage from a third world filth hole. Her mother, the Democrat member of Congress from Minnesota. These are the people, the left. They're the people of totalitarianism. They're the people of war. They're the people of civil war. The Democrat Party, the people of civil war and of unrest. They like to use euphemisms like unrest. They're rioting, but they're mostly peaceful. And we got, did you see Brian, Uncle Fester, Uncle Sester, the Brian Seltzer at CNN? They hired him back after they fired him for morbid obesity, I think was the original cause. And now he's back there, and he's saying some crazy stuff. They love saying that riots are peaceful and the cops are the bad guys, and we should really burn everything because they're the Democrat Party. So the so-called women, do they identify as women? It's not entirely clear. I think some of them, there's Karen Johnson. That's, go ahead and read what you will. But that's Whoopi Goldberg's real name, Karen Johnson. But never mind that. I'm not sure about but we'll leave that alone. So the Views of the host, they're talking about civil war. They warn of civil war after Trump sends the National Guard in to attack protesters. They're there. Now, the protesters are attacking the police and attacking the National Guard. The protesters are communist, violent, murderous, bloodthirsty rioters. They're mainstream Democrat Party voters and participants. And they, I was watching this morning on the television. Tomorrow night is the annual congressional baseball game. That's tomorrow. And I guess we're just hoping to get to game time without Democrats shooting any members of Congress, as they have a history of doing, because the Democrats are a violent criminal party and they're militarized and all this stuff. So they're warning of civil war because, the National Guard is there to attack otherwise peaceful protesters. There's so little that they know. Ronald Reagan used to say it's not that Democrats don't know anything. It's just that so much of what they know is wrong. Right? So much of what they know is wrong. But I think it's gone beyond that point now. With the Democrat Party. Death to America. They're like our Houthis. They're our local Houthis. And Ilhan Omar's daughter, death to the colonial empire. I believe that she's not referring to the global jihad, the kidnapping and the murders by Islamists who are killing everybody and kidnapping. She's referring to the United States of America. Death to the colonial empire. We're not a colonial power and we're not an empire. She doesn't know what those words mean. But that's pretty normal for the Democrats, I've got to say. And so the cows on The View talking about civil war and blaming Trump, of course. And Gavin Newsom, here's the headline from Gavin Newsom from the left-wing radicals at Mediaite. Trump wants civil war on the streets of America. Now, the Democrats, usually they telegraph what they're warming up for. I'm thinking they're bringing back slavery and they're going to break away from the Union again and create another confederation of states for the communist slave owners and their illegal aliens that they need to wipe their butts, because I'll even clean it up there. Amazing stuff. And Gavin Newsom just dared Tom Homan and Trump to arrest him. He just wants to be handcuffed and beaten because he's a California governor, and you don't want to know the rest of the details. It's too early for that. Los Angeles immigration protest. The L.A. mayor says more than 100 arrested. She says fringe groups leading late-night protest. Yeah, the fringe groups are called the Democrat Party, the mainstream of the Democrat Party. Amazing stuff. Trump ramps up response as 700 Marines and 2,000 more National Guardsmen mobilized. The Democrats defend the violent mob in the street. They are anti-police. They want to defund, and they jail the police, like Derek Chauvin in Minneapolis, who the Democrats put in prison, and then a Democrat stabbed Darren Chauvin 22 times. Once the Democrats put Derek Chauvin, the police officer that arrested their hero George Floyd, their St. George of fentanyl, and just amazing stuff. And now they're attacking, it's the guards' fault, it's the fault of the police, and not the rioters. It's never the criminals' fault because, they date the criminals. And when I say date, here's what I mean. I'll just move on from that. But isn't that amazing? Gavin Newsom, Civil War. You got The View, Civil War. Amazing stuff. And Eric Adams, the Democrat mayor of New York City, condemns L.A. anti-ICE riots and warns New Yorkers that similar protests in New York City would not be tolerated. Well, they've been tolerated for years and years since Occupy Wall Street started and all that. Pretty amazing stuff. Did you see there was a funny headline because the people at the Babylon Bee, who are funny guys, they're funny, and they put out headlines and stories. They've got a photograph of a rioter wearing a black hoodie like John Fetterman and a face mask with a bandana. And he's got a Mexican flag pin on his right chest, and below that, a Soviet Union hammer and sickle, a red circle pin, large, with a yellow hammer and sickle on it. And here he is concealing his identity like Democrat criminals do. And he's lighting a Molotov cocktail. It's in it looks like really a Corona beer bottle with a rag, and it's full of gas, and he's lighting it on fire. But wedged into the top of the bottle, of the opening of the bottle, there's a lime wedge. There's a wedge of lime, like you might put in your margarita or in a bad Mexican beer. And the headline is, Mexican rioter adds lime wedge to Molotov cocktail. See, Mexican, he's throwing them out. The Democrats, they've adopted the Molotov cocktail. They really like the Molotov cocktail because they're not on our side at all. But the Molotov cocktail with a lime wedge because, Mexican rioter, pretty good stuff, I've got to say. That's fun, the Babylon Bee. And I say, that's what America's all about because we're the melting pot. And so when the Democrats, they adopt the Molotov cocktail as a primary form of communication, then the Mexicans come in, gangs and cartels, and they shove a lime wedge in there. And that's what diversity is about, isn't it? I think that's what we mean by diversity in the United States. The leftists, meaning the Democrat Party, using Molotov cocktails, usually to firebomb a Jewish governor's mansion in Pennsylvania or to set Jews on fire in Colorado, including an 88-year-old Holocaust survivor. The Democrats, they want to make it multicultural. They want to make it diverse. They want to make it part of the melting pot. So they have illegal aliens putting lime wedges in the Molotov cocktails. The good people at the Babylon Bee. Good stuff. I'm telling you, they're fun. Mass protests over the federal government's crackdown on illegal immigration received a touch of Latino flavor over the weekend as one Mexican rioter added a lime wedge to his Molotov cocktail. The innovative twist occurred Sunday afternoon when a large mob of protesters clashed with law enforcement in downtown L.A. A rioter, later identified as 26-year-old Mexican national Alejandro Rodriguez, stuffed a slice of lime into the opening of the Modelo bottle he used to fashion his improvised incendiary device. The Democrat Party. There they are. That's good stuff. Yes, sir. And the L.A. Times, federalizing the National Guard is chilling. It's right. It's a chilling push past the law. The Democrats love rioting and looting and arson and Molotov cocktails and anti-Semitism, and they love gangs from Venezuela and El Salvador. They love cartels from Mexico. They love death more than we love life. They're not liberals, they're the left. They also love transgender. We got the update on the transgender baseball pitcher. You see this? Stealing the trophies from the girls, and the Democrats applaud this because they just know they want to have sex with somebody. They don't really care who it is. Also, an update on Joe Biden's doctor. Joe Biden's doctor from a former White House doctor. Pretty remarkable stuff here, I gotta tell you. Bop, bop, bop. And a white actress in San Diego not allowed to portray black civil rights icons. She's very upset. Since when did that matter? Come on. And we are at 888-630-9625. Chris here with a list of things that none of us should trust. The Washington Post, the New York Times, anything on CNN. Here's a list of things that I do trust. The Washington Times. Support real journalism for just $1 a week at washingtontimes.com/Chris. Yes. And I've got a lot of crazy Democrat audio for you. They're like the jihad living among us. Civil war is their new talking point. They're the ones that gifted us the first American Civil War, as it's now referred to. Let's go to the telephones. Let's go to Marcus, calling from Gainesville, Virginia. Marcus, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Thank you, Chris, and good morning to you. I wanted to talk about something that I saw on the news yesterday that disturbed me very much. I'm former military. I was in the Army. I was a military policeman. And when I watched the police yesterday start to move back, as the protesters moved ahead, they forced the police to move back. Now, that may be something that they were told to do, because if they hold their ground and move forward, it might get into something more serious. But you give the enemy the advantage when you make them move back, and they were retreating yesterday, and I did not like that.
Yeah, I was watching the same thing. The LAPD moving back in a very orderly fashion and stepping back as the mob advanced, and they were moving the television news media back, waving them back. And I was observing, and I thought, LAPD is pretty smart police department. There's no doubt about that. And they've dealt with a lot of stuff. And I was thinking, well, maybe they're bringing them into an area where they're contained and the protesters won't be able to escape. And then they could start, billy clubbing them and arresting them all.
Exactly what I thought, that maybe they were going to try to get them in an area where they had more control over them, but they didn't. And it outraged me to see all the foreign flags, mostly Mexican is what I saw. And you see someone from another country come into my country and wave their flag and demand rights that we will give them if they do it legally. But it just made me so angry to see these flags waving. And then when I saw the police move back, I was very disappointed.
That's because you're a good man and you're a patriot, and you know that a great many of the police on the street there are too. But the Democrats are in charge in Los Angeles and more broadly in California, and they are not on our side. Oh, here we're back. Ain't that great? I love the Babylon Bee. The Babylon Bee people are funny. Mexican rioter adds lime wedge to Molotov cocktail. Hey, it is a cocktail after all. The Washington Times, with their front page headline today, Trump sends Marines to join National Guard in Los Angeles. Newsom sues president over escalation of chaos, violence. Of course, it's them. It is they, the Democrats and their allies, the illegal alien gang members from Venezuela and El Salvador, and the cartel members from Los Angeles, and the Chinese, the Democrat Party allies, that are escalating the chaos and the violence, and they're the ones that instigated the chaos and the violence. And then if you respond with police, and then the Democrats say, well, we're not going to send the police in, just let them have it. What was it, the Democrat mayor of Baltimore? What did she say during the riots there when they were burning Baltimore to the ground? And she said we had to give them their space to breathe the smoke or something like that, because that was The Democrats want to give the rioters and the criminals and the violent mobs of their sons and daughters, they want to give them lots of space to burn and to sack and loot and plunder, right?
We tried to make sure that they were protected from the cars and the other, things that were going on. We also gave those who wished to destroy space to do that as well.
We want to give those who wish to destroy space to do that as well. Democrat Mayor Stephanie Rawlings Blake of Baltimore. Is she in a penitentiary somewhere? Because they're not on the side of civilization. They're on the side of, it's not just law and order. That's a phrase that they want to firebomb because they're radicals and they're extremists. But they attack you, and they attack you, and they attack you, and when I was driving in today, I saw a car on the side of the road with a lot of Democrat bumper stickers on it, and I thought, maybe I should firebomb that. Maybe I should set it on fire driving it. I didn't really think that because I'm not a Democrat, and I don't go around setting things on fire, but the Democrats most certainly do. And the violence has been going on for years and years now. They started organizing with Occupy Wall Street, where they all slept in their own feces in New York and sexually assaulted each other. They were just getting warmed up. They were putting together their Facebook groups and their Twitter pages and gathering the faithful around the bonfire, as it were. And then that was an organizational stage. And I correctly identified it at the time as the left pulling together organization across the country. And then you find who the real crazies are in your groups, and you separate them out, and then all the crazies get together over here. And they look like they're Hamas or the Houthis. And you look at the streets of L.A. with all the illegal aliens and all that dressing like Houthis. But Trump sends Marines to join National Guard in Los Angeles. Newsom sues the president because it's all about lawfare over escalation of chaos and violence. How absurd. And confusion about law, right? Fuel anger against ICE. Confused because Democrats are confused about everything. And certainly they're confused about the law because, but they got Karen Johnson, also known as Whoopi Goldberg, and the idiots at The View, talking about civil war. You've got Gavin Newsom talking about civil war. And, of course, like in 1861, they want to blame Abraham Lincoln, the first ever Republican president, who the Democrats then shot in the head and killed because, then 3 Republican presidents were killed by assassins before John F. Kennedy was killed by a communist. But you see a pattern emerging here when it comes to the left, because I certainly do. Now, the sub-headline in the Washington Times, organizations give bad information. Well, of course, you got Democrat organizations. Oh, you can't enforce the law. No, illegal isn't illegal. Recession isn't recession. Right. Men aren't men. Women aren't women. The left has disassembled the English language. It's one of the things that authoritarian and totalitarian regimes do. Manipulate the language. George Orwell warned us about this. Let's get to some audio here, because we've got on The View, the lunatics there. That's an ABC News product. It's not ABC Entertainment. That's part of the news division, because it makes a lot of money and the news division loses a lot of money. So they say, hey, we can pull a bookkeeping trick here on the shareholders and the IRS by pretending this is a news show, and that this dim-witted bad actress, I think Whoopi Goldberg for a minute was supposed to be a comedian, right? And that didn't go very well because she's not funny. But yesterday on The View, they've got the whole gang, Sonny Hostin and Karen Johnson, known as Whoopi Goldberg, and all that.
I think what really matters from sort of a long view here is the fact that he is militarizing and deploying the Guard for the purpose of policing Americans' protest activity, right? Our freedom of speech, our freedom of assembly.
Yes. It's true, the First Amendment protects your right to peaceably assemble in the First Amendment. This is not a peaceable assembly, first of all. Secondly, you say American citizens. You have IDs, national state of origin, on all of the illegal aliens with their faces covered and their Mexican flags as they're burning police cars and they're burning these automated taxis and they're burning, but they don't know what's in the First Amendment. They don't know what the Bill of Rights is. They don't know what the Constitution is. They like to use the word every now and then because they think it makes them sound intelligent and well-informed. In reality, if you just ask them a simple question, they'll reveal how profoundly ignorant they are. But never mind that. Yeah, he's militarizing. And you're militarizing. Does anybody recall the Biden Democrats militarizing the streets of Washington, D.C. around the time of the inauguration? Thousands of U.S. military troops. You remember they were staying in parking garages. It's wintertime. It's January in Washington. And we had guard troops in from around the country, and many of them staying in parking garages to get out of the snow and the wind and the rain. And you remember Democrats, some of the troops ordered pizzas, and the Democrats put broken glass shards in the pizzas for the troops that were called into Washington by the Democrats to militarize our nation's capital because they're a little Hitler. Joe Biden, Joseph Robinette Biden, was living in fear and panic because he might be a little girl underneath that skin. But isn't that amazing? And they militarized the hell out of Washington, D.C. For how long, Michael? We have troops on the streets for weeks, maybe even months. And the Democrats were rioting and burning and sacking, looting, doing what the Democrat Party is so fond of doing, rioting and terrorizing. And they only do it in mobs because 99.9% of them are too cowardly to stand up on their own. They have to act in mobs. The ones that are brave enough to stand up their own are like James Hodgkinson, who, again, tomorrow's the congressional baseball game. Let's hope the Democrats don't show up and shoot anybody because the Democrat Party is a violent party. Firebombing the Jewish governor's office, rioting through Los Angeles, terrorizing Washington, D.C. on Inauguration Day. The Democrat Party is a violent criminal organization. They made it normal. And a few people made the mistake of thinking that it had become so normal that they could engage in some rough stuff on Capitol Hill on January 6th. And then it turned out that was Pearl Harbor because all of their sneak attacks on America, those are just First Amendment protected, constitutionally protected rights, according to the left. On The View yesterday, the whoopster and Sonny Hostin.
An army turned inside to police its citizens can cause chaos, fascism. And so I think that's the way, and civil war. Yeah. I think that's the way we need to look at it, because deploying the National Guard is supposed to be a last resort. But what this president is doing is that he's saying he's going to deploy them anywhere in this country where there is protest.
Well, by the way, there were mobs last night in Dallas. There were mobs protesting in favor of crime and criminals and illegal aliens and gang members from foreign countries because the Democrat Party, they like all this stuff. They really do. Yeah. Ladies of The View warn of civil war after Trump sends National Guard to, quote, attack, end quote, protesters. They're rioters, not protesters. They're not sent to attack. They're sent to defend the city from the thousands of violent criminals who are concealing their identities by wearing, in many cases, Hamas Palestinian headdresses to conceal their identities because the Democrat Party is pro-radical Islamic jihadi terrorist, pro-Hamas, anti-Semites, pro-Houthi rebels in Yemen, pro-just open borders. They're such open border communists. They're here to destroy America, just like Ilhan Omar's daughter, who, we need to destroy the colonial empire. That's Ilhan Omar's daughter, need to destroy the colonial empire. And she is the daughter of a Democrat member of Congress, right? And they got, Greta von Thunberg. She was supposed to be an environmentalist, a teenage prophet of doom, an apocalyptic prophet of doom, and a brainwashed, glassy-eyed zombie. And she arrived in Israel. They apparently sent her out. They put her on an airplane and sent her back to France.
This is all wrong.
She's not from France, but they sent her to France because, it's like insult to injury.
How dare you?
She was in there trying to feed the enemy, the Democrat Party in their Feed the Enemy program. And Ilhan Omar's daughter, of course, with just amazing stuff.
We will never forgive you.
Yeah. You should go self-immolate, probably. I think that could be a fitting ending to Greta von Thunberg. That's great. Gavin Newsom, so there they are talking Civil War with Karen Johnson on The View. That's Whoopi Goldberg's real name. And Sunny Hostin, who, whatever she is, these people are without portfolio, without resume. They just have melanin levels and genitalia that appeal to the left because propaganda does have a gender, and they can identify it. Unlike, Ketanji Brown Jackson telling you what a woman is. She sits on the Supreme Court now, thanks to Democrats. Gavin Newsom is the hair gel president in the state of California. And I got to tell you, here he comes. Now we've got Sunny Hostin talking civil and Whoopi Goldberg talking Civil War at Civil War. Because now the Democrats, they call out the Guard. They're firebombing. They're not speaking English. They're waving foreign flags. They look like a foreign invading army. They're violent. They talk about troops. Democrat members of Congress call them their troops. And they are the party of the first American Civil War, as it's now known. Gavin Newsom is the Democrat governor of California.
That's not what Trump is after. He's not for peacemaking. He's here for war. He wants a civil war on the streets of America, not just here. He's testing the boundaries by nationalizing the federal guard.
Which has happened again and again, usually to move racist Democrats out of schoolhouse doors, like Orville Faubus, the Democrat governor of Arkansas, standing in the schoolhouse door at Central High in 1957. The Republican president, the great Dwight Eisenhower, had to send the 101st Airborne down to move the corpulent Democrat out of the way. And then I think it was LBJ that sent the military down to Alabama to move Democrat Governor George Wallace out of the way at the University of Alabama to racially segregate. And the Democrats would stand in the way because they're the party of slavery in the Confederate States of America, and KKK and Jim Crow. So they were objecting to all of that, of course. And then, by the way, it was a volunteer for the Democrat George Wallace presidential campaign that shot and killed Martin Luther King. And never mind that, aren't they? They're just something, aren't they? Our Democrat Party. I've got more of the. Wait till you hear these crazy Democrat members of Congress. But right now, let's go to the telephones. Let's go to Robert, calling from the great state of Pennsylvania. Robert, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Yeah, so I read on social media that the Japan handle these type of things. They spray them with a blue dye so they can recognize who was at these demonstrations, so they can't say they weren't there later.
That is an excellent idea, and it should be a very stinky blue dye, an odoriferous blue dye.
Yeah.
And, yeah, since they identify themselves as, we know that they're red, right, this whole red state, blue state thing. The Democrat Party has never been more red. They've never been more communistic. They've never been more Soviet, never been more left. And I do like the Japanese. We talked about this a little bit yesterday too. In Hong Kong, the police did this with rioters there. But I do like the idea, Robert, of hosing them down, bringing the fire trucks from the airport with the water cannon on the roof, right, of the fire trucks.
Yeah. And
hose them down real good. Make it the foamy stuff, for putting out fires like at airports. And the Democrats are setting fires and burning things all over the place anyway. So you could probably use the fire trucks just to put out all their fires and hose them down with. I love the idea, Robert. I just want to color them red because they deserve to be identified as the Reds that they are. Don't you think?
Yes, I go along with that.
Yeah, Robert. Thank you. That's I love the idea, and it has been done before, so it wouldn't be a first. And the left, they're going crazy. They're already, wait a minute, you're going to stop the riots And we're not sending in the police, so you send in the guard, just as we did in Washington, D.C. around inauguration time not so long ago. Don't worry about that. They couldn't be bigger hypocrites if their goal were to become bigger hypocrites. I think it might be impossible. The impossible dream to become a bigger hypocrite than Gavin Newsom is now. I don't think we can accomplish that. Robert, thank you.
Trump is testing the boundaries by nationalizing the federal guard.
All right. I've got more insane Democrat members of Congress, the party of the Klan and the Confederacy and the Civil War. And now they're talking Civil War. The Democrats are talking Civil War. Oh, no, the National Guard, which they've sent in again. It had to be sent in against them, the racist bastards that they are. But now, the National Guard, it's Civil War. Well, it'll be the first time that you people have been civil in years. I'll give you that much. Let's go to the telephones, Michael. Let's go to John calling from Culpeper, Virginia. John, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Well, good morning, Chris. Nice to talk to you.
Welcome.
I just wanted to let you know I was part of, we had just gotten back from the Gulf War, our motivated HMLA squadron with Hueys and Cobras, and we thought we were just going to have a nice, easy time, and then all of a sudden, Civil War in L.A., and we were actually one of the few Marine units that ever flew armed helicopters over an American city.
Now, wait a minute. You're United States Marine Corps. You served in the 91 Gulf War, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Iraq. You came home. Yes. The Democrats were rioting in Los Angeles, California. The Marines were called out, and your helicopter unit, an attack helicopter unit, was called into action in Los Angeles because the left was trashing the place.
And burning the place. It actually looked like the Kuwaiti oil fires up there. You know, you fly up, you fly to the smoke column, and there's Democrats underneath it. So they were easy to find.
Man, and for how long was your unit there?
That whole thing went about a week to 2 weeks, and actually one of my other roommates, Marine Corps and light armored vehicles, LAVs, and they actually deployed them up there as well. Armored cars parking on corners and telling them not to really hurt anybody, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so when the Democrats say that we haven't seen this since the 1960s and civil rights, they're lying again, aren't they, John?
They are. I have pictures in my photo book.
They lie about everything. They're the left.